SKN Newsline, Mr. Glenn Batt. The Prime Minister will give a brief opening statement on key areas of national importance, after which the floor will be opened to the interviewers to engage the Prime Minister. And I'll now hand over to the Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Terrance, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Madam Press Secretary, Mrs. Adelcia Falance. Fellow citizens and residents and members of the media, good afternoon to you all. Thank you for joining me for this special and critically important dialogue on key matters of national importance. One of the first matters, of course, is national security. As Minister of National Security, but more so as a citizen and father, I am truly disheartened by the recent acts of violence in and around the capital of Bastille. I want persons to be rest assured that your government is working quickly and strategically to quell this violence for the safeguard of all, because a life loss is a special life loss. And so I appeal to the public to know that we are doing what we have to do to make sure that we are safe. On the issue of healthcare, on the health front, we continue to build the process structures needed to improve the delivery of quality healthcare service in St. Kitts. Key to this is ensuring that top management are in place and functioning effectively. I am also ensuring that all the health workers would receive the support that they need. And with that, I would like to really welcome the new PS for Health, Dr. Sharon Archibald, on her appointment, as well as the new PNO, the Principal Nursing Officer, Dr. Rondalyn Dennis Bratcher. As you know, we had not had a PNO for, I think, for the past 7 years. That was since in 2015 when we had our last Principal Nursing Officer. So we want to welcome her. We are now in the process of making sure that we have at least two doctors working per shift at the JNF hospital, covering at least 90% of the shifts. We're also going to have from tomorrow, Saturday, nurses in triage. Those nurses are experienced nurses whose function really is to triage patients when they come to the emergency room to cut down on wait time, both at entrance and also when you are being cared for, as there will be at least two doctors to care for our patients. We have made a number of other significant changes within health that you'll be able to talk about. In my capacity as the Minister of Finance, I have received an independent forensic audit report about the management of the development bank. And I would say that it is indeed troubling. And more of that will come out as we go along. And lastly, in my statement, I want to mention the PAP. At this present time, it is still called the PAP. There has been a process of revamping this program. I want to say that today we will start with paying about 2,300 persons, and those persons would be persons 60 years and older who identify themselves as the main applicant for the benefit during the registration period. Also households headed by persons with disabilities and households with minor children of both the unemployed and employed, whether male or female. And the program will continue to roll out during this month. And so people can expect, or citizens can expect, further improvement to this program. Lastly, I want to just mention the Governor General's installation ceremony. History will be made once again in our history this Saturday, February 4th, 2023, when the first woman Governor General in our history will be installed. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has always been at the forefront of revolutionary initiatives, movements, and policies in St. Kitts and Nevis. The installation of Her Excellency Marcella A. Liebert is yet another example of the progressive and empowering ethos of this Labour administration. And so I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to her on her installation, which is to come tomorrow. We will have heads of states and heads of governments who will also be here to see that historic historic event. And those are by way of my very brief opening statements. And as you can see, this is a new type of encounter where I sit and face the press so that we can have a dialogue on these matters of national importance. And so I turn it over to you, the press, to ask your questions.
Thank you very much. Jason Davis of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. My questions are going to be about specifics. Yes. In the first topic of national security, you mentioned the recent upsurge in crime. We've had a series of fatalities within the past few weeks, and you said that the government is doing what it can. Can you be a bit more specific? What exactly is being done in response to the recent upsurge?
Well, I would say that we have come to recognize that there was a program in place that had not been fully built out, that there were a lot of gaps. It's almost as if you were putting a plaster on a sore, as we say colloquially here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so one of our first measures is to strengthen what is called the Alternative Lifestyle Program, to strengthen it so that those who are on that program can be given the opportunity to really transform themselves. And so we have started a process of registering with of course, the intention of getting to know who the persons are, what are their goals and aspirations, because we definitely want to give them more opportunities. So we have started that process, of course. We have also engaged consultants who will be doing programs, specific programs. Not only, there will be some diversions that we have stepped up. For example, in the Defense Force, we'll once again build out the Defense Force Corps in terms of the youth that we call the Cadet Corps, and that has been going well. We have also started to consult with consultants who will now start in earnest a program specifically geared at youths at risk. That program is due to start, I would say, next month or two, where we'll actually give options to them. We want to know who are the young men who want to study. We want to know which field they want to go in. And so we will categorize them and in earnest set them up so that they can really channel the path that they see for themselves. With respect to that, so we're going to revamp that, and we have started the process of doing that as well. So this talk about the program has ended is not true. We continue to, deal with the program from a financial standpoint. However, we're registering, and we are going to streamline the program so that those on the program can really benefit from the program. With respect to the security forces, I have met multiple times with the different agencies within the national security apparatus, and they have been putting plans together to make sure that we secure the people. I would say that whatever we do is to make sure that we protect all, and to do so in make sure we don't, and my advice is, don't brutalize anybody, to treat people with respect, but at the same time we make sure that we secure the country, because even those who are affected, they too need security. I've met with them on multiple occasions to make sure. But I want to say that the police force is due to go through a significant change. As you know, we are in the process of changing the commissioner of police. That's one. Secondly, we are going to put a deputy commissioner in place. We have not had a deputy commissioner for about 4 years now, and we think that that is a significant gap. And then we'll fill out, of course, the ACPs and then the superintendents and come all the way down. So we are going to strengthen the police force. And with that, we are also going to make sure that whatever the new thrust is with the new commissioner and those who are involved in the apparatus, that a strategy comprehensively start to be put together, even though there's one to respond, and not only to respond, to be proactive in making sure that we control and make sure that we protect our people and keep our streets and people safe. And so that is a major development in terms of shifting to a new commissioner and putting in a deputy commissioner, and the strategy that will come out of that. But in the meantime, I know that the members of the communities would see that the response from the national security is really to protect the people and to keep the people safe. But the changing of the guard of the commissioner is a significant change. So we know that even that a change is going to bring about advancement, improvement, because just like anything else, there will be advancement and improvement. So we are making those significant changes. The specifics of some you would not give, but nonetheless to say that we are proactive, we have met multiple times. There is, of course, a plan in place to make sure that we protect all of our citizens so that they can be safe.
As a follow-up to that matter of changing the top brass of the police force, on what basis is that change being made? Is it simply because a new government is in, or is there a technical basis upon which that is being made? And secondly, with regards to training of police officers, are you satisfied that our police officers are getting the best training possible to deal with our existing type of crime and challenges that we have on the ground? And what are your thoughts about the training?
Good. So we can dialogue. I would say that the change in the commissioner has come to the end of his contract, and while we are going through the process of making sure we have a transparent and open way of getting a new commissioner, he has stayed on a little bit longer. And so we expect the change to come very soon, along with a deputy commissioner. In terms of training, we are now in the process of having a consultant who will help us tremendously with the training of the police officers. What we are saying is that training is always good. It's always important, and if it's the right training, there's always room for improvement. So that too will be a hallmark of the new way going forward. We will put in earnest training and continue training to make sure that we keep the force professionalized. One of the things that I've come to recognize is that you want to keep petty political interference out of the police force and to allow the force to become as professionalized as possible. That is one of the thrusts that I'm really putting forward as the Minister of National Security. And so we would see that we have a commissioner done in the right way. We have a deputy commissioner. I've seen we have put out an advertisement, people are applying. There's a committee in place that will do the interviews and would make their recommendations so that all who would be interested would have an opportunity to show that that he or she is the best person for the job. And I think with this openness and transparency, that can engender a lot of goodwill within the police service, I prefer police service itself, so that can really lead to enhancement of the function.
All right, Devon Cornelius, WinFM. On the topic of finance, as you spoke about the forensic audit report received from the Development Bank, you noted that it was troubling. With that being said, can the bank continue to meet the demands of the population? And secondly, what steps would your administration take to address that situation?
Right. As I've said before, one of the first things that we did when we got into office was to strengthen the Development Bank. We recognized that the bank could have been in trouble. So I want people to know that they now have a stable bank. And so there's no need for any panic with respect to the bank, or we have taken the necessary steps. However, we thought that a forensic analysis or examination of the bank and its finances, that is necessary, and we did it. And in doing so, the findings are troubling. In the ensuing days and weeks, I think there will be opportunities to get the full explanation and access to what is exactly in that report, so that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can know. I would say that it is worse than I thought. I knew that the bank was being used in a very, I would say, demeaning way, and it was being used as people's personal finance. But when you actually see what's there, one has to say that this seemed to have been worse, or is worse than we thought. And so that information will come forthwith. But I want to say from the onset, from where I sit at the bank, we have taken the opportunity to strengthen it. For example, we started the small business loan program. We are also now moving to the student loan program, where we are moving to have student loans come down to 5% and to see how we can negotiate forgiving of some of the interest or debt that students would have accumulated over the years. Why we want to do that? Because if you look at the world, look at the United States, the president wants to make community college free. You go to Western Europe, universities free. You go to the East, a lot of the institutions are being supported by the government. What they are recognizing is that the more educated the people are, is the better opportunity for the viability and the advancement of their country. We must adopt the same thing here. That is why we made college free. But we cannot just leave it there. That is why we went further and ensured that economic costs at UE covered all professions, whether it is medicine, law, whatever it is, so that people are not left out. What was happening is that children of poor people did not have access or had access with difficulty to law and medicine, while those who had the resources could have gone because they don't need the economic cost. We have removed that so that we can have total access to all the professions at University of the West Indies, for example, by all of our people. And all of what we are doing in education is to make sure that our people have access to good quality education. We are now going to reintroduce the laptop program. That again is to make sure that our people have access to devices and also would have access to the internet so that they are connected, so that our students can really be prepared for the future to compete in this world. As we know, the world is becoming small and small, and those who are better prepared are those who are better apt to survive. And we must make sure that our people are best positioned for opportunities that we want to offer, so that our young people would not look at violence and gangs as a viable means. I can go to college, I can become this, I can become that, I can have a small business, I can advance myself. These are the barriers that we are making sure that we remove so that our people can have full access to education, and as a result, our people can really enjoy a good standard of living here.
To continue on the topic of national security, you noted that your administration will be seeking to strengthen the peace program. As it is right now, is the program still operational in terms of payments, in terms of the training? And secondly, Hush Puppy. That has been a major talking point for the past 2 years. We have not been hearing much about it. What is the status of that investigation?
Right, so I would say with respect to the peace program, we have continued with the payments, but we wanted, of course, register people so that they can be properly paid, and we are saying that people must work for what they get. And that is why we are putting in all these training programs and options for people. So that, you know, we have to establish a principle here that in St. Kitts and Nevis, if you are paid, then it's because you would have worked. And so that is a national principle that we have to abide by. And so that is one of the principles that must be introduced into the peace program. Because as you know, they were in the program, the alternative lifestyle program. They were not paying any social security. They were receiving payment. They were not paying any social security or any social levy. So it means therefore that they were not given the opportunity to even have a protected or secured future through the social security program. So we want to put that in place. And then we want to give them real options so that they can have an option to really move on, which is what we want. For you to have an option to move on so that the life of criminality is not a life that is attractive and is not a life that we want our people to be in. So we are going to dig deep because we care about the young men. We have to care about our young people. And I care about them. And so I want to give them opportunities for them really to advance themselves and to move on and to make sure that there is no recruitment of the young people. That is why we are putting in another program who will deal with that group of young men who might be susceptible to be recruited, so that once and for all, everyone can have an opportunity to live a life decent here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Still on the topic of national security, following the recent killings, citizens' confidence in the police is kind of shaky. What reassurance can you give to the people who are worried at this moment? Now, for the second question, I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit. You mentioned earlier that there is a vacancy and for the new commissioner of police, and you are stressing the ideals of transparency and doing the proper ways. Some persons in some circles might say that vacancy notice is nothing but a sham, and someone has already been selected for that position, and it does not matter who's going to apply. What's your response to that?
Well, I would say with respect to that, I see all sorts of things going on social media. Sure, you see too. Social media, people just use it for all sorts of nefarious reasons when it could really be used for good reasons. Those are nefarious reasons. I see this out there, and that is why I'm reassuring the people that the process is still ongoing and no decision has been made up to this point. So I want to reassure them. When it comes to that, that is why we have to strengthen the police apparatus, making sure we have a good transition to an ex-commissioner, making sure we have a deputy commissioner, and making sure we have the various consultants, because training and professionalization will be a hallmark going forward, because it's fundamental and it's critical. We have good people, and we think if we are able to train our people to build their moral or the morale within the police force, that can engender a lot of goodwill, which will translate into more effective policing. And so we are going to make sure that we do all of that. So coming in the next few weeks, you'll start to see these changes as we would have been planning for them going forward. But to say with respect to the program, we have not lost pulse of the program. We understand that the program functions on a particular level, but we want to take that deeper to get to the root of the matters, to uproot them, and not just put a plaster over so.
And the reassurance to the public?
And the reassurance to the public, that is what I'm saying, that we are strengthening those areas, the apparatus, to strengthen the administrative and the structure of the police force, so they know that what is being done, to have a transition to a new commissioner, a deputy commissioner, and having all the other parts fill in along with the necessary training and the resources, that these things are in place so that we can have a strengthened security apparatus. But it's not just the police, the defense force also, we have strengthened that significantly. We have increased their base pay. We have given them more barracks. We have given them a gym so that we can improve their conditions, so that again can help to engender goodwill within the force so that it can function well. And when you look at the other apparatus as well, you have customs, immigration, all of them work together along with the others to make sure that we are kept safe. And so we have been working steadily in these areas, and we'll see the culmination, at least outwardly, with this election and the strengthening of the structure of the police force.
If you could just backtrack just for a minute with regards to the development bank. You did say that the forensic study has shown some troubling patterns. Are you in a position to say at this point in time whether or not criminal matters are being considered as part of this forensic study?
Well, what I would say, Mr. Bat, is that as the days and weeks come, we will have more information. However, I would say that wherever things lead is where they would be allowed to go, because it's very troubling what is seen in that report.
All right. On the matter of national security still, the issue of immigration has always been a problematic and sometimes a political football. What is in your policy vision this year and beyond in terms of where you want the immigration policy to go? And in regards to people who are already here, who are here illegally, what will be these policy with regards to their status?
Right.
And then secondly, as a follow-up to that, Coast Guard issues, facilities, boats, that kind of thing.
Right, thank you very much, and I'm happy that you spoke about the Coast Guard. Let me start from there. I would say that I spoke to the head of the Defense Force constantly, especially when we meet in defense board meetings. And I want to say that we will be getting a larger patrol boat, a 40-footer. That will be coming sometime soon. That is a major improvement. Secondly, the Defense Force, the Coast Guard base is under construction still. And the last report that I had is that that is progressing well. So we expect significant improvement when it comes to the Coast Guard. So we expect more patrols, we'll be using more technology, and we'll have a better base for our men and women who are in the Coast Guard. Again, significant improvement to show our members of our security forces that we are serious about their conditions, and hence we are demanding as well that with these improvements and investments that we expect you also to produce. And so both things go hand in hand, that people can be held accountable. That was one, that was the second part. Now the first part you asked with respect to immigration, correct?
Yes.
Now we have taken, now immigration have different aspects, but you speak definitively about those who are here may not have status.
Right.
We have started an amnesty period. Why? Because after 2 years of COVID, people had no work. The economy contracted significantly. And because we know that people didn't have any work, jobs were closed down. Even people who would have brought people here to work and would have done their permit and so forth, that they were not in a position to do it. So we are saying even the immigrant community, those who abide by the law up to that point when the circumstances were beyond their control, that we need to give them a fair chance. And the fair chance is to give them an amnesty period and to set up a payment plan in such a way that it's no burden to them, so that they can get back into the workforce as our economy continue to expand and open again. According to the IMF report, we are expecting a 4.3 growth in our economy this year. Tourism is back. It is not as strong as other countries in the OECS because the previous government kept the country locked down for too long. Read the IMF report, it is out. You will see what they say. And we also suffered the worst deficit in 20 years, in 2022, even though the former Prime Minister was trying to deny it when I said it. I think you, Mr. Bat, did your own analysis and recognize the difference between deficit and having money. You can have money in your pocket and still owe. I think most people are like that. Because you have money in your pocket doesn't mean you don't owe for your mortgage, correct? And if you have less money than you owe, then you're in a deficit. Correct? It's simple maths. And I think that the IMF report clearly states that it's the worst deficit that we have had. And one of the things that hurt our economy was as a result of that. So our immigrant population was also affected. And we have to be, we are a government of compassion, but we believe that we should follow the laws. And those would have a period of amnesty with consideration of payment so that they can get back into the workforce and have an opportunity to provide for themselves and to provide for their families. Where we really have an issue with is the fake marriages. Right now we have, I think, over 1,000 possible fake marriages that we have put a committee together to study them because they are very, very suspicious. The law says that I sign, if I can withhold signing if I suspect that fraud was committed. I mean, somebody get married 3 weeks ago and asking for the citizenship 3 weeks later. And then you hear of a divorce and we marry, you know, and they plan these things. And we are uncovering that. And we are saying that that is not the way that a country must function. If we know that, we cannot accept that. In no country in the world that is worth its salt would accept that. You know, we have always been open. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has always been open to immigration. But we want it to be done in a particular way at the same time and, you know, respect the laws and give people an opportunity to come here, build their lives, you know, have business, build their families, just like we go to other countries and do the same. However, I don't think any country would accept a petition coming there to have a fake marriage to get their citizenship, would accept it if they know that. No country accepts that. And so while we're doing the amnesty and we are compassionate, because we should be, because we know people suffer, all of us suffered, but at the same time, we cannot accept these allegations of fake marriages, especially when we are seeing very strong evidence of it. So we have put a committee together to look at that. So for our immigration population who have always followed the laws, we know they had difficulties, we are here and I'm asking them to go to national security to to have their situation looked at. So I'm using this opportunity to tell them that there's an amnesty period and I'm encouraging them at the same time to go to national security to have their matter resolved.
Is the time limit on the amnesty period?
Well, we are looking, basically we are looking at least 3 months, because we're encouraging them to come in so that we can, have them dealt with, so they know that in this period they can really go. So you yourself, you should probably encourage them. It would help us so that people can get themselves regularized and back into the workforce and move on with their lives.
Mr. Prime Minister, just 2 more questions for me. On the topic of the CBI program, how many passports has your administration issued, and can you give an idea of some of the nationalities? As it relates to the Governor General, questions have been raised on social media as to the former Governor General. Was he asked to resign, or did he resign on his own? Can you comment on that?
Well, I have been very, very gracious to former heads of states and former heads of governments. He is, of course, he was the previous head of state. If you go back and you see how Sir Edmund was treated, Sir Edmund Lawrence, the disrespect with which he was treated, basically kicked out of the place, had no privileges after he left. He was not even included in an official protocol list. When I got there, I decided I would not treat the former Prime Minister like that. I left him with a driver and a vehicle at that point, because irrespective of the political differences, he is a former head of government, a former Prime Minister. That should be respected. And when I went to visit the former Governor General, Sir Tapley, he and I had a discussion, and I asked him, how do you want to leave the office? He gave me a timeline. I respected the timeline. People were like, Dr. Drew, you're Prime Minister now and the Governor General is there. But yes, you have to respect. My approach is that. He is the head of state. He should not be asked to leave in disgrace or be treated in a disrespectful manner. We are decent people. We have to act decently, even if we have political differences. And so he said to me he wanted his time would be up to the end of December, because he wanted to put things in place and so forth. I said, fine, leave him until that. I went back to see him again, and he said, PM, I need some more time. I said, no problem. And I gave him until the end of January. And with that, he has a driver, he has security. And I told him I would put a committee together to put a comprehensive program together, a process of how former head of states and governments should be treated. And so they can all expect that, because I believe that they should be treated in a particular way, and I think the majority of our people expect that they be treated in a particular way as well. And that had been because I was adamant that I would not allow the Governor General to be disrespected in any way.
Sorry. The question for the passports and an idea of the nationalities.
Right. So let me touch back on the Governor General. With that, I just want to reiterate that we'll have our first woman Governor General. That is historical. And I think tomorrow at Government's House at 5 p.m., I think, the installation ceremony will take place. With respect to the number of passports, as you know, we have a new CEO, and he's still carrying out his inquiries and the processes. He's just been on the job a short while, and he would have those numbers. And I would direct you to the office as well, so you can get them those direct numbers. I would not have those direct numbers with me, but I want you to CIU unit. You can call the government headquarters and be directed to the CIU unit to have a conversation with the new head of unit so that you can access the information.
I'm kind of glad to hear you talk about the head of state and the protocol of changeover and that kind of thing, because I really fail to see why is it necessary to have a change of Governor General simply because the government has changed. I see them as two distinct things. Nevertheless, I'm really glad to hear you say that. Now, if I can go back to the matter of national security, when a community is being stressed by high levels of crime, and you are hearing on the street all kinds of rumors, there seems to be what was said before, sort of falling in confidence after we have been in a period of time when there was very little crime, and it's happening on both islands. The increase is happening on both islands, and they're very violent crimes. Is there any concrete steps that are being taken right now that will address these issues in terms of the investigative arm of the police force? How strong are they? How competent are they? How much confidence can the community have in the officers who are now in that particular department?
Right, so I would say that there are plans and there are investigations. If you were to listen, I think they would have caught a number of the perpetrators. I think if you follow up on that, you would see the releases. So it means that serious work is going on, and they would have retrieved firearms as well. So I want you to pay close attention to that, or even call the police and get that specific information, but I can confirm that. And I think with that type of results, it will tell you that people are working, correct? With respect to it, and I keep saying it, is that you had a program in place where what we recognize that we need to go deeper. We cannot put a plaster, because what we recognize is that the cost of the program in terms of the financial investments in those who are on the program is projecting to over $30 million, going up accordingly to the place of being unsustainable. Can you imagine that? Unsustainable. So it means that therefore that the root of the issue had not been dealt with, because now you are creating an unsustainable situation which was projected to be unsustainable all along. And so what we are saying is that we have to find now permanent solutions. But I'm very optimistic. The reason why I'm optimistic is that based on what we have done and what is being structured, I'm very optimistic of where this can lead. And we can really, at the root of it, deal with it. Because we have seen programs like these in other jurisdictions, and they have not worked. Jamaica is a prime example. We see what resulted in the end. You go to Central America, well, you see what resulted in the end. So we have seen these before. These are not new scenarios. They just go through the natural lifetime, so that you have an unsustainable program. It comes a point when it becomes. But irrespective of that, you live in a country, there can always be a spike, but you control it quickly. It doesn't mean that it's a trend. It needs time to determine if it's a trend. But it happens in any country. It happens in the best of countries, the most, and we are among the best of countries. That you might have a period, but then there's general control and calm. And this is most likely what has happened here. But I like the fact that there has been results thus far. So that is the message that I want to bring forward.
If I can also ask you about your policy with regards to the private sector.
Yes.
Is there, it's often said that the private sector is the engine of growth for yes. any country. Now, what is going to be the relationship between the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and perhaps a future small business association and government with regards to having some kind of common understanding of where the country needs to go and how the country needs to go forward?
Right, very good question. I met with the FS, the Financial Secretary, about 2 or 3 days ago, but this week. And I said to her, we have to now put a plan together to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and meet with labor as well, but specifically first to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry to discuss a number of critical matters, that they understand the trajectory of the government, but to also inform them as to where the economy is. We suffered the worst deficit in 2022, and we saw a lot of that money spent just before the election. And so we know partly, and I would say, what that was used for. Nonetheless, we are now coming out, and if you look at the IMF report and see what the IMF is suggesting, that the government's revenues need to go up if we are able to sustain all these social programs. So we know we had taken down the corporate tax. It had come down to about 25%. We also know that we had been subsidizing electricity for a very long time. The fuel variation charge, we have been paying for that. That is one of the things we are subsidizing to the tune of about $9 million per month. And so we know that the government's revenues are affected that way. And we are being asked to really increase the revenue collection. And so that conversation needs to be had. We are not into creating an environment where businesses cannot survive. As a matter of fact, we want businesses to survive. That is why we have formed a small business ministry, a one-stop, because we want people to go in with an idea and come out with a business, that you have a place where you can go, and to create an environment in which your business can thrive. We don't want any business to falter, and we want more businesses to be successful. It means that people can build wealth, grow wealth, and at the same time, it takes the strain off the government, because the government cannot hire everybody, you know, and therefore we have to find other meaningful ways in which people can do well, and business is one such area. And so we will meet with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we will put the numbers to them, and together we work together, because at the same time they want to be in an environment and a social situation where their business can thrive. So there's always a social responsibility to every business. I think every business should have that as a matter of practice. And so we will meet with them. And so I asked the Financial Secretary to prepare that so that we can meet with the business community and put forward what the findings are and how we can work together to make sure that we are in the optimal place in governance in this country, the financial sector being the most specific area.
Regarding health, in 2017, St. Kitts and Nevis, along with other countries, made a commitment to implement a national dementia plan. But since then, nothing has been put in place, to my knowledge, although there has been some sort of movement in other countries. What's the Ministry of Health's plan in regard to this?
Well, we have a new PS who is coming in, and a new Director of Health Institutions, and new PNO. As you know, there was no Director of Health Institution for the last, I think, 7 years. There had been no Principal Nursing Officer for the last 7 years. The Ministry of Health ran about 2 years without a permanent secretary during the last 7 years. And so we have put all of that in place. And so now the government is doing an assessment of all of these programs. This one came to my attention. As you know, I am fully abreast. I'm a medical doctor by training, and I think a dementia, this type of program is critical and important that it be put in place. And this, of course, will be taken up by the new administration within the Ministry of Health, and this will be under the purview of the new PS as well. As you know, the PS would have worked significantly in mental health, and this, I'm sure, is one of the things. I say this because we are approaching all of these in a comprehensive way. As you can see, all of the programs that we are laying out at this point in time. And you will have an update next week through the media, through communication, as to what we are doing in health. I spoke about the upgrades because those needed to be dealt with immediately. We needed to have more doctors in A&E at a given shift. We need to have nurses who are triage nurses. We need to train our EMTs. The EMTs are going to start the formal training very soon. These are certified international training, so that they can be, of course, respected anyway, but most importantly, that when they show up, they are properly trained. We're going to offer our nurses more opportunities to become specialist nurses. We are recruiting more doctors. We are improving our lab, improving our blood bank, improving our health record system, shifting over to electronic system. And so we are doing a number of critical things in health because there was no process There was no structure when it came to these things. So many of the things that I see people might be speaking about, for example, at the eye clinic, there was no machine to do cataract surgery, a basic eye surgery. We ordered the machines right away. They're supposed to come within the next week or two so that we can save people's vision and so forth. As basic as that, we're making sure. We have just procured new dialysis machines which are being stored in Canada, so we can have good backup for that. And so there are a number of critical areas within health that we are dealing with. I'm very, very optimistic about health. They're going to get quick results very quickly. I know we've just been in about 6 months, and these are significant changes already that the people will see and will continue to see. The MRI machine that we have ordered to come, that is being built and so forth, those are things that we have invested in. Because I will say this to wrap up on the issue of health. Health care for us is not a privilege. It is one of, we consider it a human need. It is a need, and we must deal with it from that perspective. It is a right, rather, and we must deal with it. And that is why we are going to put forward the national, the universal health care, which we are putting in place, and part of that will be national health insurance. I'm going to ask the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to help us to deliver to them national health insurance. The St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party delivered Social Security in the 1970s. Now we are being asked now to deliver national health insurance. That is another safety net, but you don't have to wait for it for when, you know, later in life, the majority of people, as majority of people do, you might need it now. I see a lot of people die poor or leave debt for their families to pay, people who are in solid middle-class jobs, because you can save $300,000, $400,000 and think you have a lot of money for your retirement. You will either die suddenly or you will get a catastrophic disease. Most people get a catastrophic disease at the end of their life because all of us will die. If you get a catastrophic disease at the end of your life, you'll see how quick $300,000 disappear. And you left your family in that dead situation. We have to have a situation where people can have insurance down to, our life expectancy now is beyond 75. But insurances only insure up to 75. So when you get a catastrophic disease after 75 and beyond, some people before, all of your savings will disappear because you will have no insurance unless you decide you will neglect yourself. And I see it all the time. And I ask myself, why not we as a people sit down and dialogue and come up with a plan of how we can put universal health care, national health insurance in place so that we can protect us as a people and not only see the need when we become sick, but that, and we don't have to walk around necessarily sponsorship to determine if we live or die. Those things, I think, have to go away. We need to, and I'm going to dialogue with our people. I'm going to put the facts before them, and I'm going to ask them, our people, to contribute to creating a national health insurance plan to make sure that our people don't end their lives or die in poverty when they would have lived solid, at least solid middle-class lives during their years, and to become dependent on sponsorships. As you know, I've put a plan in place where I have a fund for children, but that is where we're at for children. But if we have a universal health system, even the children will be insured. And so all of our people would have access at least to basic health care and for catastrophic moments. And that is where the dialogue need to go, so that health care becomes a right as they have it in Western Europe and Canada and other places that we admire. We need to make sure that we have it here as well.
Before Devon asks this question,
yes.
On that same universal health care, there was a lot of work done, from what I understand, by the previous administration. Is it that you're taking stuff from those studies, or are we starting from scratch again? Right.
So I would say that started under the Labour administration. As a matter of fact, when the government changed in 2015, the plan was left on the table. I can say that. And because the government changed, instead of looking at the plan and say, if this makes sense, let's pursue it, they tried to scrap that to say we're not taking anything. Well, I am not that. If you have done some studies, if some professionals came in who were paid with my taxpayers' money and did some studies, even if it was under the previous administration and there's substance in it, I am going to use it. And I'm going to use that which was done before 2015 that what was done after 2015 and come up with the best scenario. We have to be intelligent people. Why should I put the country to something when it started under the previous Labour, continued through the last government, and now I am here? You can use that data and that information to deliver to the people. My objective is to deliver to the people. Our objective is to do that. So if they have done work and it's valuable, and we have found some work by some professionals, and some of it is valuable, I want that. And what was done by the previous Labour administration that is valuable, I want that. We want that. We want to use all of that to put forward the best plan for our people.
Mr. Prime Minister, I just have one more question. I received a number of questions, but just one more. With regards to budgetary allocations to the island of Nevis, it was noted that a committee was put in place to look at that matter. What is the status of that committee? Who are the members of that committee? Can you provide an update as it relates to the progress of the work that they have been doing or should be doing?
Right. So I spoke to the Premier, and the Premier would have informed me that he would want to wait until after you had the throne speech, because remember he had elections. Even though we had agreed to it on principle, he had an election soon after the federal election. And so now he has given his throne speech. He and I have scheduled to meet to really put this in place. So we have agreed to it in principle. I have spoken to it, and we're going to put this in place to make sure we look at the Constitution, look at the budgetary situation, and see the best scenario for both St. Kitts and Nevis. We are one federation, and my attitude is somebody who lives in Jessop's Nevis, should have the same opportunity as somebody who lives in St. Peter's, St. Kitts. We are a federation, and therefore my attitude is that how can we end the back and forth as much as possible and reach a point where we can have an acceptable arrangement going forward. I would say arrangements like these, they need to be upgraded from time to time. Things change, reality changes, right? And as those changes take place, we also have to change. We have to adapt. We cannot continue with something that was put there from 1983 and think it will work in 2023 with a changing world. As I said, the only thing constant is change. So we also have to make sure that we change to keep up. All right.
Yes, I have. I think this will be my last question. We're going back to the discussions about the Governor General, and a question that was posed to me, and I'd like to get your opinion of it. What about the concept of leaving the selection of the Governor General to a vote from the public?
Well, you see, the Governor General's position, that is a constitutional matter. The role of the Governor General is really a ceremonial role. And if you leave it to be selected, then you might be passing executive power to the Governor General. When you look at the monarchy in the UK, for example, in England, the idea is that all of that executive power go to the Prime Minister. And the King understands that he has no executive power at all. So it's almost like so we adopted that type of structure from England. And so the truth is there's no executive powers there. It is mainly, as you know, it resides with the Prime Minister of the country. Some countries have moved on to totally finish away with it, because who you want to hold responsible really is the executive, which is the Prime Minister and the people who you elect, and the members of cabinet and so forth. And so those are held responsible. So that, I think, would be a constitutional, crisis, to put it that way, right? So those who you elect are those who you hold responsible.
Any other questions?
All right, yes, so I want to thank you that we were able to sit down and have a frank conversation. And as you know, I'm always willing to sit with the press. I think dialogue and openness and transparency are important, especially because we are dealing with good governance. Just to update us, on the 8th, I think it is the 8th of February, next Wednesday, we'll be putting forward for first reading the Integrity in Public Life, Anti-Corruption and so forth we are saying to the people, and I'm very happy about this. If it's one thing I think I'm most pleased about, among all the other things we would have done, is that by March this year, we will be able to put in place our good governance, integrity in public life, and so forth forward. That is going to set the country for real growth. Just doing that alone is going to cause a growth in the economy. Studies have shown that. So maybe the 4.3, we'll see where that. But once you have good governance, that sets the foundation for a vibrant country. And I'm looking forward to that. And so I'm encouraging people to tune in to hear that we are really going to put in place integrity in public life, anti-corruption, and so forth, so that those who come after us, and even us, that we seek to govern ourselves appropriately with the people's trust. That is the direction we are going. And the other thing that I want to say also, with respect to the Governor General, I can't stress it enough. It is about time that the head of state is a woman. And we are long overdue, and I'm happy to be a part of a team that have, really recommended that and have pushed that forward. And I would like to thank the former Governor General, Sir Tapley, for his service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And as I said, we'll have some head of states and head of governments who will come. Tomorrow, I travel to St. Lucia with the ministers or the prime ministers of the OECS will meet with CDB to discuss regional travel, because as we know, regional travel is not so good at this point in time, and it's hurting all of us, where we will seek to really find a solution. And there are a number of other critical things that I will update our people on in short order that we are working on that will come to fruition. But I just want to say that the PAP would have been paid today, 2,300 people, and the rollout will continue as we seek to revamp that program and to make that program better and to make it more targeted, so that we are really putting our resources where they are best applied. And so I want to say to our people that with respect to the recent increase in that short period of crime, that is not really a trend, that the forces are really putting things together. But we'll see a change in the leadership of the police with a different twist positively of how we wish to do things. But as I said before, is that the young men who have lost their life, I want to extend my condolences to their families and to let them know that this is an administration that cares about them, that we want to see things put in place to help them to transition from a life of gang into a productive life. And we will make sure that we continue to work towards creating those opportunities for them. All of our citizens should have an opportunity to advance themselves, and that is what we are working towards. But at the same time, as I said in the budget, that law and order has to be critical, because safety and security really creates the environment for a lot of our things to flourish. And with that, I want to thank you, the press, for coming, sitting with me, dialoguing, having a conversation, and many different things. And I look forward to the continued dialogue. So thank you very much, and thanks to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis who have afforded me this opportunity, and I humbly, of course, always will be at your service. Thank you very much.